Good to see everyone again. It's that time of year where we're getting ready to crank things up for spring practice. But before I get into some of our personnel and just our format for spring, I'd be neglectful if I didn't say something about men's basketball over the course of the last week and a half. The excitement that Dave Richmond and his staff and his players brought to not only to NDSU but to Fargo. I know my family, our eyes were plastered to the TV, and it couldn't have been more exciting seeing my boys get excited for the Bison, getting an NCAA win, and then competing with the likes of Duke in the second game. So congrats to them. And then I also I know it's out there already, but I have to say something about Pat Simmers. Pat was ever since I stepped on campus, has had a smile on his face. And if you were to talk about the King Bison, I think Pat would be that guy. His life has been centered around NDSU and NDSU athletics. I should say his family's life has been centered around it. So when you see him, give him a pat on the back, because he does an unbelievable amount of positive things for our athletic program, and especially football. So with that being said, I'm going to get into a little bit about spring ball, but I will make a comment that it's been kind of a busy 3 months here, the last three, or my 3 months of being a head football coach. You talk about a big semifinal win. You throw a national championship in there. Along the way, there's two different recruiting days that we're trying to make plans for. We have a couple players, Easton and Bruce, participating in the NFL Combine, in Senior Bowl, and then you throw a trip to the White House. A lot of people have asked me out there, what's it like being a head coach? And probably the real answer, or the truthful answer, is I'm not really sure yet, because what I've gone through is atypical of a head coaching experience. But what an outstanding, a number of great experiences, not only for our student athletes, but for our athletic department. I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up Coach Kramer and the work and his staff has put in this offseason. We backed our start date of spring ball back a full week this year. Normally we've already been started. I wanted to give our new staff an opportunity to meet with our current team and create some relationships. But twofold, because of our youthfulness and having over 45 players on our team that are entering either their third or second spring ball, an extra week in the weight room I don't think was going to hurt anybody. And you look at some of our weights, we're going through testing right now. It's unbelievable to see the strength gains that guys like Spencer Wagee have had. Not only is that going to allow him to be a better football player, but the confidence that brings that young man is big time, and will allow him to be a big part of what we do going forward. NDSU's always been a process-driven program. We go about our work. We have a plan for every day. We're going to continue to do that. We hope our plan allows our players to, improve individually. That's the number one thing that we're looking for out of this spring. Because of our youthfulness and our inexperience, that's where we need to put a lot of our thought process into. Compete daily, compete at every drill. Teach some of these young kids how to practice and how to do it the Bison way. If we can have personal improvement, we know each segment, each unit, and the team will ultimately reap the rewards of this improvement. So we look forward to it. Like I said, this is about 45 of our players. This is either their second or third spring ball that they've participated in. In my experience here at NDSU, that's about the time you need to start identifying or finding what your role on this football team is. Are you a starter? Are you a backup? Are you a situational player? But there's a role for everybody. And we had a meeting yesterday and talked about that in particular, about identifying, finding your role, and then maximizing that role to help the team win in the fall. And then, of course, we got to stay hungry within this program. We've done an unbelievable job of avoiding feeling satisfactory about all these national championships, trying to keep our kids hungry. And I think part of that, we don't allow our kids to wear any national championship attire on campus. We want to keep them hungry. We keep them always thinking about the next day's practice or the future. The 2019 team hasn't done anything yet. We talked about that in a team meeting yesterday. For all the accolades the 2018 team accomplished and the previous years, this is going to be the first practice tomorrow of the 2019 squad. And I'm super excited to get going. I know our staff is. We've tried to meet as many times as we can just to make sure that we eliminate any bumps along the way in practice and that every T is crossed, every I is dotted. But I'm looking forward to it. The things that we need to emphasize over the course of spring, number one, we have to create depth. We either need to find starters, we need to find backups, situational players. Are there position changes that may have already occurred that we need to flip and change again? Where can we find people to fit in that allow us the best opportunity to win on Saturdays? We know we don't play the Bison in the fall. We practice against the Bison, and so it's a great contest. Tyler will do an outstanding job. Dave's going to do an outstanding job of getting each side of the ball ready to go, and I know Nick is chomping at the bit for special teams. We had an outstanding 2018 season in special teams. I think the best in the league, but that's the expectations around here is that we continue to dominate the league in special teams because those snaps are so valuable and will allow us to win games. Other things that we'll emphasize throughout the course of spring, fundamentals will be a huge, especially with some of the inexperience that we have, just getting our kids caught up in the X and O's part of the game. We have a number of kids, a few of them that we pulled their red shirt from last year. Jasir Cox would be one. He needs to let the game slow down so he can help us more on every down type of situations rather than just on special teams. Special teams I talked about. And then the last thing, we need to be able to adapt and adjust. With this young group, we need to throw a little bit of adversity at them. A lot of them get content. They think it's easy to win because you're the Bison. We need to prove it wrong, and that's part of the reason why we have these early mornings. We're going to get up, get going. We expect them to be ready to go. I should say expect. We require them to get up and ready to go in the mornings. We'll start meetings at 5:40 a.m. Practice will be at 7:10, and we'll practice for 24 periods. Most weeks, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then the week of the clinic will go on Saturday afternoon for the clinic. At this time, I'll talk a little bit about some position groups or some things that I think are critical for people to keep their eyes on as we move forward throughout the spring. I'll start with the offensive side of the football. I'm excited about where Dylan Radins and Zach Johnson are. You talk about our two upperclassmen that return along the offensive line have both had outstanding springs. Anytime you can start and you start looking at your starting five and you have two great bookend offensive tackles, I think it allows you some flexibility. We do need to, again, identify who's going to be the backups there, and I know Coach Blazik will do a great job. The one other position, probably the offensive center spot, Carson Schoening, Joe Schreiber, Zach Willis, kind of a three-man race right now. I don't think we're anywhere near ready to make any comments on who's a starter. I am excited about seeing where these three young men go. I think all of them are excellent football players. You know what's neat? I'm going to step back here from talking about players. Is the last couple of years we've had some really good recruiting classes on paper. Well, now's the time we find out if they're really that good. Everyone always asks, Ross, you're the first one. All right? Boy, what do you think of this class? Well, I can't tell you for a couple of years. Well, I'm going to have to start, probably chiming in now and tell you what I think of some classes now. But I'm excited because, we've thought for a number of years we were recruiting a different type of athlete here, and it's going to be fun to see these guys compete on a daily basis. One of the changes at the offensive line, Quinn Allo was moved to the offensive line from D tackle. Quinn's done a great job this spring of buying into the change. I think his mentality, his physical nature will allow him to probably potentially be a factor in that room. Just the other day, I was hustling out after a morning workout where our coaches were present. We were leaving, and I saw Quinn snapping real quick out of the corner of my eyes. So the young man's already bought into what he's doing and trying to find a spot or a role for him to be successful this year. At the tight end position, Ben Ellison, what can you say? Continues to be one of our best players in the weight room, on the football field, in the classroom. He's the epitome of what you're looking for in a student athlete. But you throw Josh Babich and Noah Gindorf in that mix, you're talking a big, long, physical room. Last year as defense coordinator, I seldom probably watched offensive snaps from the sideline, but the one snap I did last year, I saw Noah Gindorf block down on a 5 technique when we were running G solid, and I tell you what, that 5 technique went for about 5 yards and went for a ride. So I have that thought in my mind of Josh being so successful, establishing the line of scrimmage and establishing the point of attack on the edge. That I'm excited, and I know it'll be great work for our defensive ends as the spring unfolds. Garrett Malmstrom, his nickname's Meat Stick, so every offense needs a fullback with that type of name. I think that says it all right there. He's the one guy pregame that I avoid giving high five to because I think he's going to rip my arm off every time he takes a swing. So, but a great player and will do a great job for us at fullback. Hunter Lupke's probably another young man I need to comment on. Hunter's an unbelievably athletic fullback, probably would remind you a little bit of Brock Robbins as far as his ability to catch the football, was a tailback in high school, has probably better speed than what you would consider just your average fullback out there. So again, a young kid who's a freshman, did a great job on scout team a year ago or this last fall. Now we got to find out where he can fit in and help us. The running back room, I think there's still a ton of talent there. Ty Brooks, Adam Cofield, Seth Wilson, Dimitri Williams. We need to remember this was a young man that was good enough to start for us as a true freshman. Because of the 4-game rule and the new redshirt rule, we were able to redshirt him in 2018. He's a starter coming back. He has starting time. He played against teams, and started. His first game was at Montana in 2015. Feels like forever ago. But to have him coming back, and the young man that isn't listed there, Sabian Clark, a 6'1", 210-pound running back from Sioux City, Iowa. I saw this kid all year long. He was our scout team running back. I'm unbelievably excited about him. A big back who can bend his hips, can sink, can change direction. I think he provides us something different in the backfield. So really looking for him to have a big spring. And then at the wide receiver spot, again, extremely young, Christian and Phoenix, both having experience. We need those guys. What we need out of those two is leadership. We need them to show the young kids how to do it, having gone through a season and being contributors for us, even more so in fall camp. I think will be critical for those guys. We're probably going to have a true freshman have to help us at the wide receiver position come fall. On the defensive side, still have a ton of depth at the defensive line. Spencer Wagee continues to get stronger and stronger. Again, thanks to Coach Kramer and his staff. Spencer was a big-time player for us a year ago and gave us some critical downs. Cole Karch, I know he's not listed as a returning starter, but we're talking about a young man that had 7.5, 8 sacks last year. I'll take as many non-starters that have 8 sacks as you want to give me. That kid's pretty special, 270, 275 pounds. Big 3 technique that is dynamic enough, as numbers show it, that he can rush the passer. And looking for big things out of him. Matt Beagler, Jack Darnell, Lane Tucker, it's going to be one of those springs where those guys need to establish themselves. But I do feel like there's some plays to be made in there. Derek Tusco, what can you say? I think he's one of the best football players, defensive football players in FCS football. He's an unbelievable athlete. You talk about a young man that has an attitude second to none. Every day he's all about getting better. And, I walk by Coach Williams' office, and there's Derek every day, watching film, watching cut-ups, watching the 2018 season. A young man that understands that the 2019 season started a long time ago for us. Logan McCormick played for us as a true freshman in 2017, redshirted last year, is going to be in the mix. All this young man knows is how to win football games. Kimberly High School, he won 4 state championships. He's been here for 2 years, and I think you can count the number of losses in his career on one hand. I love his leadership. I love how he goes about his business. He's going to be a factor for us. You do see Jabril Cox was moved to will linebacker. My number one job helping out the defensive guys is I'm going to make sure that Jabril is uncomfortable all spring. And for us to do that, we had to move his position. It got too simple for him a year ago. Part of that was on my fault. So he needs to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And we're going to move him around as much as we can. He's a special athlete. He's a special football player. But he can continue to get better, and we're going to make sure he does. at other position spots. It'll be interesting to see how the Mike linebacker position unfolds. Jackson Hankey did a nice job backing us up last year. I'll tell you this, both Bo Pauly and Jackson Hankey know our defense. They can get us lined up. They can get the checks out. They can communicate, and they have one of the best Mike linebackers, former Mike linebackers, as their position coach now. And so I expect these guys to continue to develop with Coach Olson's tutelage. And then Jackson Brown and Jasir Cox, two unbelievable special team players last year for us. Now it's their time. They need to start giving us some every snap production. And they need to be out there on base downs rather than just on third down or on the special teams. In the back end, Marquise Bridges, I really think he can be one of the top corners that we've ever had here. I think he can be the Jalen Allison, the C.J. Smith, the Marcus Williams type of performer. We need him to become more consistent. We continually talk about that, and his approach to the game needs to become more businesslike. But as he matures, you're starting to see that this offseason. James Hendricks, James can do it all. I wish we had 10 of them on the team. He can be quarterback. He's played will linebacker. He's played strong safety. He's played free safety. What I need out of James is unbelievable amount of leadership this spring. I think that'll come through with some of the youthfulness or the Michael Tutsies, the James Kaiser, the Dawson Webbers. They need James Hendricks to be that rock for them back there that can answer questions, can help them get lined up, and can be another coach on the field when Dave Braun's on the sideline. And then lastly, Josh Hayes has a couple starts in his career. I think the kid has an unbelievable amount of talent. I look forward to him continually to develop. A young man that started for us in the national championship game in 2017, and I think has oodles of potential. A couple injuries that and some names that you probably did not see on the two deep is Aaron Mercadal. Aaron's coming off an ACL. He will participate in individual drills. We just did not put him on the depth chart at that time. I really hope I hope personally and as a coach that Aaron's competing for a starting role come the fall. But again, trying to move Jabril to Will, get Aaron back. All we've done is create depth, and one of the emphasis that we wanted to do this spring. Dom Davis coming back from an ACL tear as well. He'll be going through all the individual drills. We'll keep him out of all the team-related drills. Again, trying to get reps at free safety. Ben Hogarth has an ACL tear coming back. Individual drills, same thing, a backup running back. And then Cordell Volson, offensive lineman, will be back potentially late in spring. Right now, just recovering from an off-season surgery, but we'll be ready to go in fall camp. The last thing I'll say before I open it up, two things, I guess. I think you'll see some unique combinations on the offensive line. Coach Blazik figured one of the best ways, and I agree after conversation, one of the best ways for us to develop some depth is move some people around, give some people some other experiences. What are our best five? It may not be what you've seen on film or on the grass in recent years. A Zach Johnson playing guard, a Dylan Radins playing center, things of that nature. We need to identify who gives us the best chance to win games looking forward. And then the last thing I know a lot of people have asked, I think there's a lot of similarities between the 2015 defense and the 2019 defense. You talk about 2015, we had 4 returning starters. People in here, who's MJ Stump, who's Pierre G. Tucker, this Nick DeLuca guy was going to start for us finally full time. Well, I think we're kind of in the same situation. We have guys who, aren't the commonplace names right now, but you know what? We recruited them for a reason. We're going to coach the heck out of them this spring, and I'm excited to get going tomorrow morning. At this time, I'll open it up for questions.
You think back to your first season on the staff and how, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but overwhelming, and how much there was to take in spring practice, and how much you depended on those upperclassmen to kind of show you the way. How are you helping out all of your new guys on the staff? Are you relying on kind of the blueprint of spring ball in the past, or what are you doing to make it your own?
Well, I think, as far as practice plans, I think we've adjusted them a little bit. We've tried to look at maybe where our deficiencies were in 2018 and make an emphasis. I know we are going to make an emphasis on tackling and some open field situations this spring just because of the lack of the numbers of players who've had to make plays on the field. And so we will tackle probably a little bit more than what we might have last year with 24 seniors. As far as our coaches go, trying to give them ample information. Saturday meetings with Coach Braun, coming in and trying just to give him as many details as I can, or things that, hey, keep this in mind, because this is going to catch up to you eventually. You got to be ready for this. I think those guys have appreciated it, but that was part of the reason why we backed spring up a week. It gave me a week to be a head coach a little bit longer and be concerned about some of the pitfalls that you sometimes see in spring that I don't think about. I knock on wood, I've thought of everything, and we're going to be ready to go tomorrow. Or at least it'll look seamless to everybody.
Are there any nerves at this point for you, or are you just chomping at the bit, ready to, as you kind of said, you don't really know what it's like to be a head coach yet. You've had so many other things going on. Are you any nerves or just chomping at the bit?
I'm just ready to go. I'm excited to get out there. I want to see our kids compete. I think they're ready to go. The extra week with Coach Kramer was great, but I think our kids have a chip on their shoulder right now. Unfortunately, they hear people say that they're not supposed to be as good as they have been in the past, and that's probably where I correlated a lot to the 2015 season. We weren't supposed to be any good then either, and good things happen when you come every day ready to practice. You're right, though. Every day is the first day for me being a head coach. Tomorrow will be my first spring practice as a head coach, and I do look forward to it.
Matt, how do you evaluate quarterbacks throughout the next month?
I think Coach Hedberg and myself and Tyler will have to sit down, and it's probably going to be a day-to-day evaluation, a lot of grading, a lot of film watch, and trying to put our best foot forward. And put, the thing that we have to make sure we keep track of is making sure that all four of them get to the same number of reps during practice. At this time, I don't think anyone has a leg up on anyone. Holden has probably the most experience of the four, having played in 8 different games last year. But at the same time, Coach Hedberg's done an unbelievable job. His proof's in the pudding as far as his previous quarterbacks that he's worked with, and I look forward to seeing how that competition unfolds.
Do you anticipate having a starter at the end of spring, or at least somebody to say, okay, going into the fall, you're going to get the number 1 reps?
In my mind, Dom, I might, but I won't tell you.
Trey ended the season number 2. Why open now?
I think right now Zeb wasn't even part of the team in the fall, so I think to give him a fair shake, we need to open it back up. And people change. People develop. People have been in and watched film over the course of the winter. Let's see how they've handled that. Learning process and that learning curve. I think a lot of things can happen. We got to make sure we're ready. We can't go into a season and just have one A quarterback. We need to make sure that room is ready to win his football games.
Matt, is this time of the year more important with the new guys coming in as coaches, kind of getting that mesh with the players and finally getting on the football field and understanding what the schematics might be from a player to a coach personnel?
I think so. You're talking about creating some relationships. Oh, definitely. And that's been an ongoing process since these guys got on campus. And I go back and say that's why we bump spring back as far back as we can. I wanted Coach Larson to be around the running backs as much as he could prior to that first day of install, so they had an idea of who this guy was. And I wanted, on vice versa, I wanted our coaches to realize, what flips the switch of each of our athletes out there. We need to make sure that we're coaching them in a manner that is best suited for each individual athlete. We can't just stereotype them all and think they all learn the same way.
How crucial was it to get Zeb in here this semester as opposed to next, and having him and Griff be a part of the White House experience and kind of have him be a part of things now?
Well, I think, one, just with our offensive structure and our vocabulary offensively, I think it's huge. If he'd have came at fall camp, there'd probably been no chance of him being the starter, I don't think, in next fall. Coming at semester, I think it gives himself an opportunity to get all these reps. And we're going to continue to double rep. We're going to continue to do all those things. At practice, you're going to see us having both ends of the bubble, and if we're outside or in the dome, both ends of the field going at the same time. So there's reps for everybody. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've been so successful is we've been able to develop our players consistently. Doesn't matter if you're a 4-stringer or a 2nd stringer. But I think the number one thing is with Zeb is just getting familiar with our terminology here at NDSU. And again, he brings a guy that started against Oklahoma, a Big 12 experience. He's been out there in critical situations, and I think that's only going to raise the level of play within the quarterback room.
As head coach, is there a trait or two
two you want to see from the quarterback that wins the job?
I think game management will be the number one. I want to see someone who takes control of the huddle that our players can rely on, that they can lean on. Leadership would be the number one factor that I'm looking for. But then just ball security. It's okay to end a series with a kick, be it a field goal, a PAT, or a punt. That's all right with me. If we force people to have to drive the field on defense, we're going to give ourselves a situation to be successful. But we need to be smart with the football.
What did Jackson and Jasir really need to do to go from special team like assassin to linebacker?
I think it's just understanding of the defense and of the position. And Jasir, it was a new spot. I mean, he played most of his career in high school as a safety. All of a sudden now you're down, you're in the box a little bit. There's offensive tackles sifting up to you, trying to cut you off. It's a different world. Things happen a little bit quicker. I'm excited because of the way we double rep. I think they'll both get ample amounts of reps this year. They're both open field play. They can do it. They've shown us they can do that on special teams. I think it's just getting the game to slow down a little bit for both of them.
When do you have shells? When do you have pads? Kind of in your weekly breakdown here.
We will be first 2 days per NCAA rules. We'll be in helmet only, and then next Monday we will be in full pads, and that will be a kind of a partial tackle day. We need to get out there and see who's willing to tackle and who can do some of those things in the open field right away.
You have Agbu, I see listed at backup at defensive end. What have you seen through his scout team year to say maybe he's ready to contribute?
I've continues to develop. Man, he'd be a great one, first one off the bus because he looks like unbelievable. We need the game to slow down still. He's only played football for a handful of years. There's a lot of scenarios and a lot of reps that he has yet to get, and he needs more of them. And I'll tell you what, I hope he's paying attention. He needs to work on his flexibility.
Who's someone that you're really excited to see at Pro Day Thursday?
I'm excited to see them all. I think that's an unfair question. Those guys have been coming in and out of the office over the course of the last few days. It was great. Bruce Anderson looks good, looks healthy. Excited for him because I know he's battled a little bit of an injury since going back to the South Dakota State game. To see him fresh. Robbie Grimsley was in. I'm excited. He's back from Nashville where he was training. I think if teams get him on the board, he'll blow them away with his intellect, his football knowledge, and, of course, Easton. He's a cool customer. He's ready to go, of course. And I'm excited about how he's back, but you have the Dariuses and the Lances and all these guys going to catch for him in his script. And it's still once a Bison, always a Bison. He's still going to use the same guys that allowed him to be successful on Saturday in his pro day.
So Chin going from offense to defense and Alo going from defense to offense, is that equally hard? Is one tougher than the other?
I couldn't tell you. Having seen Costner over the course of spring, saw some athleticism in him that I thought behooved the move. And Tyler Roll was adamant that he thought Costner could help us. But again, I'm looking at our depth chart. We got three excellent tight end candidates right there. It came down to a decision where Costner can get on the field and help us the quickest.
And what about Alo?
Same thing. I just felt like he's played nose, and I think his mentality and his physical skill set allow him to be a successful or have quicker success on the offensive line.
Matt, for the guys that got into 4 games last year, you really believe that can bolster them into the spring after seeing what they did in the fall?
I do, because of the experience they had of the preparation from week to week. I also think the confidence that it can generate. All of a sudden, Jasir Cox knowing that he's out there in a national championship game, running up and down the field, making plays, or whatever game it might have been. I think there's some value to it. I'll be interested to see what the NCAA does going forward. I know it's probably a 2-year. It seems like everything they do is on a 2-year kind of calendar. I'm waiting for the day that it just becomes 5 years of eligibility. Well, I think he's played the position now for a year and a half as a true starter. Being our slot area defender, he's done an unbelievable job. I guess I sell it to him as this is a way for him to affect the team in a positive manner. Playing Will's a little bit tougher than playing Sam in my estimation, having been a coordinator and linebacker coach. So I'm trying to push his skill set to a place where he can really truly help us. If we can get our best 11 on the field is ultimately what I'm looking for on both sides of the football. That's why I talked about there could be some position changes even within segment groups.
Are you kind of using the Nick blueprint with Jabril and moving him around and making sure that he understands the game wholly?
That's what we're trying to do. It's about, it's his third spring, and that always is the benchmark for me of when the light bulb should come on about that third spring. And so, trying to give Jabril the tools where he can help us at will, but at the same time, and he played a little bit of it last year, but we need to make him more comfortable, and so the process happens quicker, the reactions, and I think it'll only help him in the future as well.
So you lost just a handful of guys out of like 100.
Yep.
You'll take that every year?
Thoughts
on the turnover rate?
I'm not going to look too much into it. We had a few guys. Demars Purifoy was a medical. He was just advised by our doctors not to play football anymore, coming off of 2 knee injuries. And some of the other young men graduating. And then, college football and especially NDSU football is not for everybody. We ask them that in the recruiting process. And number one question I ask everybody is, do you love football? Because you have to here at NDSU.
You guys lost Brock a season before you had anticipated. How important is it to get Hunter and Austin ready so Garrett's not playing 50 snaps a game?
Well, I think the other thing is you're looking at a young man like Ben Ellefson, who's a senior. Why couldn't we do the same thing with him that we're doing with Jabril? I mean, I think he should probably learn how to play some U and some F too, just because of his experience. And then all of a sudden you probably create some more depth just within the room itself.
So does that mean you're moving him to the backfield?
We could be. He could be playing fullback.
Okay.
Yep. Sorry.